In a world full of turmoil, despair, and darkness, you need to carry the light. Season 3 of the Get Attitude podcast is where we will ignite your mind, your heart, and your attitude. And welcome to the GAP, the Get Attitude podcast, The Gap, bridging the gap from who you are to who you wish to become and from where you are to where you want to go. Hello, friends and gappers. My name is Glenn Bill, founder of the University of Attitude, Keynote speaker, and author of the international best-selling book, The ABCs of Attitude. You know what? I've been so fortunate to help tens of thousands of people get attitude. Attitude, the secret formula to success, not only in your business, but also in your life. And this podcast will help you get yours. So, let's get some. Welcome, everyone. Please remember to subscribe, to rate, and to review, and to share this podcast out if you like what you hear today. Today we have an absolutely inspiring leader in the real estate world, but even more than the real estate world. Remington Ramsey is more than just a name in the world of real estate. He is truly a visionary leader, and I've seen him go from one magazine to 130 markets. I've witnessed it. I've actually been on the cover of his awesome magazine. He is also a creative force behind Real Producers Magazine. With a passion for connecting people and elevating communities, Remington has dedicated his career to transforming the real estate industry through innovative ideas and relentless commitment to excellence. What I want you to know is that this just isn't about real estate. Whatever business you're in, what you are getting ready to hear from this visionary leader can apply to any business, whether you're selling refrigerators, HVAC, roofing, I don't care what it is. But enough about me, guys. Let's go ahead and meet the one and only Remington Ramsey. Remington, welcome.
Man, how's it going? What an intro.
Hey, buddy, that's what we do.
This is what I want to know. Are any of those trophies for a single episode?
Yes.
I wanted to be the first single episode trophy that you got. Gosh dang it.
Well,
all right,
we'll look at those. But, hey, you never know. This could hit. We submit quite a few. What's that?
The fourth is the best we can offer.
The fourth?
The fourth.
So those are for single episodes?
So those are for annual, 2020, 2021, 2022.
No, I want to get you a single I want the episode to be so good.
Yes.
That's what you get.
Those are all single episode trophies. Those are all.
Look at them shine.
I guess I want to listen to those then.
Hey, it's all good. And Remington, I know you're going to bring it, man.
Yeah. We're ready.
So as we always start, Remington, we got a lot of stuff to cover and never enough time. You're on the Get Attitude podcast. I'd love to know your definition of attitude.
So like my journey, I followed your journey. I believe I was one of the first ones to get those brand new T-shirts. You told me to do push-ups before I took a picture. I did.
Hey, our T-shirts feel so good they change your attitude.
They make you look good, man.
They do.
I would say since we're talking about entrepreneurship, the attitude, I don't know that I'm going to come up with a great definition right up front, but the attitude of I'm going to figure this out regardless. My risk tolerance is at an all-time high is really where I go to when I think about attitude.
Nice. So Tony Robbins once said that the level of success is directly proportionate to the amount of uncertainty that you can handle in your life. Mm-hmm. So when you talk about risk tolerance, I think that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think it's doing enough, and I usually use this for leadership, but I think it is also applied to attitude, but it's the amount, it's your ability to make very important decisions quickly, bold, decisive decision-making, because a lot of, we don't want to make the wrong decision, and then we kind of take our time, and then we don't make any decisions, and that's when, especially in entrepreneurship, we start to fail. So I think that's probably what I would tag on to that.
I'd rather make a bad decision than no decision any day of the week.
That's right.
I love making bad decisions.
You can make up for it.
Hey, love adversity. It's on the card, right? Number 8. Everybody knows. The definition of attitude, you kind of weaved there a little bit. Yeah. If you had to give me a definition of attitude, what does attitude mean to you?
So when you say attitude, are you talking about a good attitude?
Yeah. Or a bad attitude.
My response, so what is it? Life is 10% what happens to you, 90% what you do with it.
I like it.
That's what I would say.
Okay, that's good. I like that. And that's a fair answer. When you think about, I think you got attitude. There's no doubt about that. We define attitude, the definition is the way you dedicate yourself to the way you think, which means what's great about it is you have a choice. You have a choice to look at something positively or negatively. And what I always like to do is get the people to know who we're talking to before we really start getting into things. When you think about your attitude, who was your first attitude coach? Like, who had the biggest impression on your attitude?
Without a doubt, my parents. I mean, we came from very humble beginnings, were even, you could say, homeless at times, lived with my grandparents when we moved back, didn't have a lot of money. I was the son of a preacher and a teacher, so I had no shot. I was going to be speaking about something. But yeah, they're always in front of people. They're always talking. And if you're going to be doing that, it's a very vulnerable place to be. And so they were, without a doubt, those two, my parents, were the first ones to help me develop attitude.
Awesome. And so many of our guests, and we love to go there, and I'm happy you mentioned grandma and grandpa. You know, you have 4 grandparents.
I have 6, but yes, keep going.
Okay, that's interesting.
Divorce is a funny thing.
There you go. And so out of those 6, was there one or maybe 2 that had a supreme impact on you? What was their name, and which one of them was it? And what was the attitude lesson that they taught you?
Yeah, I write a lot. And when I first started the magazine, I started writing a publisher's note each month, and it really, I love writing it because it forces me to think about what's impacted me in my life. I wrote this one piece about 3 grandfathers and what I learned from each one of them. And I'll pick, since you asked about one, I'll pick one out. My grandfather he was sick, or he had a surgery or something, and he couldn't mow his lawn, and he was super particular about his lawn. And when it was the first time I was allowed to mow his yard, and I went over there, and I was like super nervous about it. The lines were pristine, best lines you've ever seen. And I got done, and he was around the block, so I walked home, and I'm watching cartoons or TV or whatever, like eating a snack, and in walks my grandpa to my house, my parents' house, and walks right up to me and says, "Follow me." So I look at Mom. I'm like, is he allowed to do this? Like, what's happening? Didn't tell me anything. So I walk, 2 blocks behind him, and I can tell he's disappointed. And he looks down on the ground, and there were grass clippings. Now, we mulched our yard. I didn't really understand bagging. I didn't know anything about it. I was brand new to the whole industry. And he looked at the grass clippings, and he said, "Finish the job."
Oh.
And I still get chills thinking about that moment. And you know what? In this moment, no matter what, I still think about those words, my grandpa saying those words. If I'm trying to take shortcuts,
right,
I think about finishing the job. I think about the attitude of, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to finish it.
I love it. Now, you started your career, and thanks for sharing that story. Grandparent stories are always the best.
Yeah, Dick Rawson, man. Richard's Kitchens and Bath Center, still in Muncie.
So that's what he was. He was an entrepreneur.
He was an entrepreneur. He was the one that got it going for me, probably, because everyone else is. I don't know if it's true across the board, but I found that entrepreneurship kind of skips generations, because the next round comes in, they don't have the same risk tolerance, they weren't put in the same positions, and then that generation breeds the next round. So
did you work in this shop in Muncie?
I did. So you knew me back when I started selling knives.
I bought knives from you.
That's right.
I bought thousands of dollars worth of knives. He's like, "Look at this guy." I spent like $2,500. I still have the knives with my old company on.
Oh, you're supposed to get rid of those.
I know.
Those are gifts.
Wasn't very smart.
So my first real job, I guess I had 2 real jobs. My first, but I started a lawn mowing business that did really well. And then when I had a first W-2 job, I worked, as an assistant plumber or assistant electrician. I basically helped out installing kitchens and baths.
Wow.
But it was in 2008. And so when I came back the next year, even Grandpa could not hire me. He couldn't afford me. And so that's when I decided to double down on this whole knife gig. And that was the next 8 years of my life.
So look at Cutco Knives, one of the greatest companies around, one of the oldest companies around. Give me the attitude lesson of Cutco Knives? Like, what's the attitude of Cutco? What's their culture? What did they teach you? What was the attitude lesson from those 8 years?
So I could speak on it for hours, and I have. It's well documented how I feel. I owe a lot, if not everything, in terms of business to Cutco, because I went to school. I've got thoughts on school. I love school, but school failed me in certain ways. When I was at Cutco, I really learned how to hone my skills, become a leader, run a business, how to think about money. And in that first year, I learned how to create a push week. And we talked about finishing strong. Like, that's when I really learned what actually working hard meant, an attitude of working hard. Up until that point, you know, I was a high school athlete, college athlete, and nothing. I had worked hard before. I'd worked hard in business. I'd worked hard in studies, and I had never worked hard like I did when I did a push week in Cutco. I mean, I worked 90-hour weeks. I remember at the end, it was like a push competition, and I was number one in the office, but I found out late that I wasn't number one in the state, so I started working even harder. And I remember at the end, it was like 9 o'clock on the last day, and we were driving up to Detroit the next day, and I called my manager. I made the last sale, and I was like, I hit the number, I made the last sale, and she goes, "Can you do anything else?" And I said no, and I hung up and I cried. That's how hard I worked. But that's what I learned. I learned finishing strong and working hard.
What's this push week? Never heard that term before. I would prefer to make it a pull week, but what's a push week?
Oh, when you're just pushing yourself. You're pushing hard for an extended period of time. At this time, I think it was like 10, 14 days. It was actually like a 2-week period, and it's like you signed. We actually had a document, and you signed, I am going to hit a certain number of calls you're going to make, how many appointments you're going to actually keep, and what you're pushing to. You're not signing how much you're going to sell. You're signing how hard you're going to work. And what it taught you is, like, regardless of what the numbers are, it'll figure itself out if you commit to the work.
Yeah. Well, and numbers are numbers in sale. So, gappers, if you're out there and you're going, and you don't even know what this guy's done yet, I've given you a little thing, but it's like, are you doing the numbers? I mean, this is a guy that's done it. And that's what I teach, in our Source of Sales course when I do sales training. And it's like, you can be the worst salesperson in the world, but if you got the numbers figured out, it's going to work. Yeah. So that's awesome. So, cool about Cutco. Who started Cutco, and did you ever meet the founder of Cutco, or who was the most influential person at Cutco that you were like, man, that dude's freaking awesome, or that woman is? So
what most people don't know about is, like, Cutco is a American-made company. The Stitts, Jim Stitt Sr., Jim Stitt Jr. are the ones who own Cutco, created it. And in the 80s is when they hired Vector to do their sales and marketing. Up until that point, they were with Alcas and a couple other companies that they were basically hired to push their product out there. They never wanted to be the distributor. They just wanted to make the product. So then in the 80s, they hired Vector, which came in, and they own it, but it was a completely separate company that was tasked with, like, essentially recruiting 19 to 22-year-old kids for the most part to do this while in school, to pay for school, and ultimately the ones that succeed to start a career in the management or in, like, direct sales.
Yeah. My brother-in-law sold Cutco. Well, everybody knows somebody that sold Cutco, right?
Yeah, and they recruit more kids than the Army. That's a fact.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, they're big recruiters.
What do you think is, when it comes to recruitment, some people call it attraction now, because that's what we do. It's not recruiting, we're attracting. Mm-hmm. What's your thought on recruiting, attracting, and building a team?
I see why people say that. But if you stop with attracting, you're not going to recruit anybody, is kind of how I feel. Now, I know that's loaded. I think there's probably more to that. Like, if you attract the right people, you want to work with the people that you're like, and I get all that. But recruiting means so much more to me than just building a culture. Like, you have to go out and get those people. And I know this because I did it 130 times in the last 10 years, and there was people that I wish I didn't, even though I attracted them.
Yes.
Right? And there's people that I wish I would have done a better job, regardless of if they were attracted or not, they were the right person.
So I want you guys to think about this. Magazines are dead.
Yeah, print is dead, baby.
Print is dead. Anybody's a dumbass if they're going to get into the magazine business.
You told me that.
And
do you remember telling me that?
Yeah, I'm sure I did, right? There's no way. You're never going to be able to sell a magazine. This guy is in 130 markets. So when he said he recruited 130 people, those are the distributors.
Yeah, those are the franchise owners.
Yeah, the franchise owners.
Yeah.
So was it a written goal? Did you just end up there? How did you get into 130 freaking markets?
I don't know that the number of markets was a written goal. I will tell you that the written goal was a business that was so big that we would host a national event, and I wanted a seat at the table. I wanted real producers to have a seat at the table. I wanted to be in the same breath as all the big real estate brands, whether you're Century 21, Remax, Compass, Zillow, all the names, brands synonymous with real estate. I wanted to be one of those. So that was the dream, and the event-wise is happening next year. So that was really what we were building up to for the last 10 years.
And that event is called RP Elevate. It's going to be in September. Have you picked out your venue?
Lowe's Arlington, I believe. It's a brand new hotel. I believe will be the first real estate event in there.
Nice. How many are you expecting?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't want to sell ourselves short. Originally, we said between 700 and 1,000. It's exclusive. The people that will be in the room are people who get the magazine, and there's so if you look at Indianapolis, there's 10,000 realtors. We go to the top 500,
right,
and their teams. So there's a few more agents that are represented in that. But we figured out that in terms of who receives a magazine, it's 55,000 top real estate agents or teams across the country.
Nice.
So we're not trying to compete with NAR and have 12,000 in the first year, which, I mean, they said 12,000. They really had 6,000.
Right. I was there.
And were you there? Oh, I missed it.
I was at the one in Washington, D.C.
Oh, yeah. So, it was just last week in Boston. I just got back. Great clam chowder, by the way. Terrible lobster roll, in case you were wondering.
Okay. I've spoken there a few times. I would agree. I would agree.
Yeah.
So 55,000, and you're thinking, if I get 1%, that's 550 people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a good event.
Yeah. And honestly, what we say about the magazine, what we say about our local events, and what we're going to say about the national event is it's not about how many, it's about who's in the room.
Yeah.
And we're going to have the right realtors in the room and the right vendors in the room.
And so talk to me a little bit about RP Elevate. It's a 2-day event. And then I'm guessing, are there breakouts? Are there keynotes?
Sure.
Are there masterminds? What are you trying to accomplish there?
Well, I mean, if you look at the front of our magazines, connecting, elevating, and inspiring, that's what we're all about. So if you come to a real estate event that Real Producers puts on, you're going to connect with the top realtors in the industry, which I'll explain why that matters. It should go without saying, but honestly, for a lot of realtors, they don't get it. And then networking with the top vendors, which is also important. And so I write about this all the time. Like, you want to be the one-stop shop. If you're a realtor, and that's who we cater to two people. We cater to the realtors and we cater to the vendors. We don't make money without the vendors. There's that's how we make all of our money, is providing enough value for realtors to read the magazine that the vendors pay to be in front of the eyeballs of the realtors.
Right.
So the event is just a reflection of that. With the speakers on stage, we've got, I love this setup, man. You're like so blessed with this. I got to up my game for podcasting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Attaboy, Jason.
Fantastic, Jason. So, this is the website that essentially, like, if you scroll down, we just announced our keynote speakers. We've got, who's that guy?
Remington.
Yeah. So, this is going to be the first chance that I can really tell this story from a national stage, how it all got started. But Molly Bloom, who wrote Molly's Game, one of my favorite movies, phenomenal. Aaron Sorkin directed it.
I just saw that come across my Netflix queue yesterday.
Watch it. Oh, they're listening, man. They knew I was coming. They were
right.
That is not a coincidence.
Damn algorithm.
You think it is, yeah. Wayne Salmons, coach from Dallas. Rory Vaden, who wrote Take the Stairs and Procrastinate on Purpose. We've got a couple that were, and those are the ones that are outside of real estate. Then we also have real estate, big names in real estate that are, if they did $100 million on YouTube or luxury, those are going to be on the panels. So that's what's on stage. And then the networking is, again, it should go without saying, but if you're well networked across the country, that it can only open up doors for you.
Right.
Both in dollars and opportunities.
Well, I put on my fair share of events, I can promise you, it's exhausting. So
it is.
You got good lead time, which is good. I always just say, let's just do this in 90 days and make it happen.
Yeah.
So you got.
But you've been to my events. I put my heart and soul into it.
Bro, you do. Your events are killer. You're, it's all about repetition. It's all about doing the numbers, and that's what you do, and that's why you're successful. What's your biggest challenge being in 130 markets?
Personally, it's taking it's leveraging and making sure that the next phase of coaching is up to par, right? So if I spent my entire time recruiting and developing, I actually personally coached 60 of those.
Okay.
And then I coached and altogether like 6 or 7 coaches that launched the rest.
Right.
So duplicating yourself, knowing that it's ready to go on to the next phase, and then putting your attention elsewhere. So like this is the first time, the last couple of months is the first time in 10 years I haven't been recruiting. It's not been my primary focus.
Right.
So that's been a challenge.
So building a company like this, certainly there's been days where you wanted to throw your hands up and say, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this.
Well, we're missing one key point, because when I went to you, so you were one of 50. I met with 50 real estate professionals back in 2014 to ask them what I'm not thinking about, poking holes in my plan. All of them told me not to do it. It's stupid to start print in 2015 at the time.
Attitude lesson: don't listen to people more screwed up than you.
My confidence outweighed their doubt.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why I didn't even have a sample. I mean, I basically had a Kroger magazine, and I was going to these vendors saying, hey, this is what it's going to be. Trust me, it's going to be awesome, and sold $250,000 worth of advertising before it even came out. Yeah. So that wouldn't have happened unless they saw how serious I was at previous ventures. And that's why we were talking in the pre-show about who we're talking to, like someone who's especially younger in entrepreneurship.
Right.
I feel like the new wave, I mean, we were wondering why millennials are getting older and staying in the basement. We wonder why Gen Z and all these next generations are staying in mom's basement, not getting married, not getting houses longer and longer. It's because of this American dream that has shifted to where they want to be YouTube stars right out of high school or even in high school. And so they see these 1%ers, and it's not even 1%ers. It's half a point of a percenters that hit it big. Right. I mean, we just saw the Jake Paul fight. He started as a YouTuber, so everyone was like, oh, okay, that's what I'm going to do.
Right.
I'm going to drop out and do YouTube. I'm going to get this setup that Jason has. Right. I mean, I can't afford it.
Easy.
So, and then I'm going to be a YouTuber. But that's not what happens. What happens is they post a couple videos, and then they spend the rest of the time just hanging out on YouTube, and then they don't get a job, and they wonder why they don't have a brand, and they're not considered an entrepreneur.
Right.
I think the best piece of advice, so I wrote the book on, it's not a joke, I wrote the book on this. This is one of the chapters I wrote on because I feel for the next generation. They need to embrace the brand. They need to work in the industry, whatever industry it is that they're trying to get into, pick a job, does not matter what it is, and work the toughest parts of that industry, learn, pay attention, and solve a problem, and then create the business as a side hustle until it becomes your full gig.
Right.
Real Producers was a side hustle. It was to sell more knives.
Right.
Now, I could have done it. It was such a good idea. I probably could have done it in my parents' basement and printed it all, but I did the best thing ever. I teamed up with a publishing company that was already bigger than I was.
Yeah. And
I trusted them, and they were the ones that essentially helped me scale it nationwide, because it was too good of an idea where someone with deeper pockets would have come and taken it and would have been game over for me.
And they still could.
Yeah, true.
You know?
That's why you got to keep hustling.
Well, that's why you got to keep hustling and keep growing. But I've always said the number one thing that real estate brokers crave more than anything, and that's what you give them: recognition.
I thought you were going to say free lunch.
No, but
you're exactly right.
But it's true. It's that's why it was just so brilliant what you did.
Yeah, thanks, man.
And so you got this book called Agent Allies, right?
Yeah.
And this is about, and this is for any entrepreneur listening. You know, there are people here. People come to our podcast. I always say it all the time. You know, from relationship reversals to personal reversals to business reversals, and Agent Allies is a roadmap for an entrepreneur to create a ally-based business. Mm-hmm. So talk to us a little bit, maybe about the 2 or 3 most important points of your book that people need to know if they're, you know, wanting to be an entrepreneur and scale a business.
So in the first part of the book, I write about my journey. And I say this often in the book. I'm not going to tell you how to do it. I'm just going to tell you how I did it. Because when I was younger, I'm basically 15 years into this game of just business. when I was in the first 5 to 7 years, I literally just, every time something worked for me, I would tell everyone they had to do it exactly the way I did. I don't know what, this must have been immaturity in the business, but I was like, you got to get an assistant, you got to do this. And it's like, so instead of doing that now, I'm just telling, hey, this is how I did it.
Right.
So take what you want and throw the rest
Take
away,
the best,
you
leave
know?
the rest.
Yeah. But Agent Allies is essentially how I called on realtors to build my business from the vendor side, and they are essentially allies, because most of the vendors, and then the next 10 years, I coached other businesses in doing the same. So this is the book reflection of that. It's coaching other vendors. And for most of the vendors that are in real estate, they're not actually selling realtors anything. They're selling the clients, but they have to get through the realtors to get to the clients.
Yeah,
and
gatekeepers.
So it's a very different sales pitch than like trying to sell you something. I'm trying to sell you on using me, so you send me all your clients. So that's what the book is about, is essentially how to build your business calling on real estate agents.
And so how do you do that?
Well, first off, you got to buy the book, Glenn. You know that. That's step number one.
Yeah, you got to print the book.
Yeah, that's true. Touche, man. Listen, I'm going as fast as I can.
It's happening. I know it is.
Yeah, the formatting. So I break it down into 2 broad categories into what I did, which is, so you know Jay Papazan that just wrote The One Thing with Gary Keller. I just had him on my show a couple weeks ago, and he defined this concept better than I ever had. It's called building your cathedral. And the quote was essentially, if you set yourself on fire, people will come to watch you burn. Okay, so this concept of, we try to go out and get this business. We try to go to them. And my frustration when I was selling knives, I know we're talking about knives a lot, but this is my story.
Yeah.
I would go to all the big shows and spend $500 to $1,000 to all the brands and the award shows and banquets and CE, and set up a booth, and they'd give me this card and then say, hey, every agent's going to come around and you're going to stamp them, and they come to your booth and you can sell. I'm like, cool, sounds like a great concept. So I get this card, got my knives, I'm ready to sell them. So then before you know it, 100 realtors run through the door, don't stop at any of the vendors, and they go into their CE. I'm like, okay, that's weird. All right. Maybe that's just, maybe they'll come at break. Okay, 1 realtor comes in at break, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to sell this one. I'm going to make the most of it. So I'm trying to sell them my knives. Before you know it, 8 other realtors say, can you stamp this? Can you stamp this? Can you stamp this? And I lose that sale, and none of them were interested in knives in the first place. So then I spent the rest of the show staring at all these other vendors. And that was a light bulb for me, because I'm like, I can't even sell them anything. I'm trying to sell to realtors. I'm spending more time with the vendors. I should create something to sell the vendors.
Right.
So that was light bulb number 1.
Boom.
But to solve the problem, I was like, you know what? These events need to change. So I'm going to create my own events. So the first event that I ever had is Thanksgiving time. It was around Thanksgiving time. I called it Turkey Time. I gave away 8 turkeys and 8 carving knives. I sold more in that week than I ever had before, because not only did my agents come.
I think I was there.
You probably were. It was at the store. It was at the Cutco
82nd
store.
Street.
That's right.
I was there.
That's right. Thanks for buying knives, man.
I did. I bought like $2,500 worth. Swear to God.
That's right.
That was my. So that's novel, and it's different, and it's out of the box.
Yeah.
Could you go into any industry and dominate?
Yes and no. Could I reproduce the skill sets and figure out the systems and work hard? Yes. I think that for me personally, I have to have a passion and really feel like I'm making a difference and doing something. And I don't know that I could do that in every industry.
Yeah.
So that's my answer. Is this duplicatable? Absolutely. That's why you can read a book and do what it says and become successful, whatever that means to you.
Right.
But for me, like this platform, when you're good at something, success gives you a platform to impact people in a way that truly matters.
Let's talk about the RP podcast. RP is Real Producers. We are with the only Remington Ramsey, publisher of Real Producers magazine, entrepreneur. He's grown this thing from 1 magazine to 130 markets in a time when people said print is dead. So whatever business you're in, and if there's a bunch of people telling you it will never work, I hope you're listening to this pod.
We need to talk about that, by the way. Print is dead. We need to address that at some point.
Well, good. Well, let's just do it now. So,
sorry to throw off your flow.
No, it's good.
You've said it so many times. I'm like, they're going to think that unless I address this issue.
No. So, print. I don't think print is dead, but tell me how did you get over that?
So print is dead. You were right. Print is dead, but it wasn't print. It's what people were printing, and I didn't realize that. So this would have been 2014. You weren't the only person to tell me that, but I distinctly remember sitting across your desk saying, "Man, don't do this, man. You're doing so well at Cutco. Just do that." But I was like, you know what my answer was? You might not remember this, but I said, "Glenn, it's gonna be successful, and when it is, I'm gonna put you on the cover." Do you remember me telling you that? And then I put you on the cover. That's right. That's the biggest slap in the face. You got to be on the cover of a magazine. It's too easy. Okay, so print in that time was dead, and it was what people were printing. And we're at a time now, this is 2024, going on 2025. Print's not dead anymore. It's actually very much alive. There's niche products that have kind of cut through the crap, the noise of social media and online. But it doesn't matter, because in the next 5 to 10 years, print will be dead again, because it's all about, like, people are all about what the numbers make it, how many people are buying the Wall Street Journal and all these things. So the key is creating a print medium that the content can only be found in that medium. Right. That was what the victory came from. This is Facebook and print. You have to be a realtor in Indy to get this, and you have to know everyone to care. And this is not content you can find online. You can only find in the magazine, and that's how we won.
That's awesome. I love it. What are the 3 most important things you look for when you're partnering or opening up a new market in a person? Or I guess the 3 attitudes, maybe, to be consistent with the show. So like you're going into, you're not in Oklahoma City, or are you in Oklahoma City?
We are in Oklahoma City.
Of course you are.
Yeah, Kelly Kilmer. Shout out to Kelly.
Right, Kelly, what's up? Now, why is Kelly so fantastic?
Kelly's fantastic because she was one of, if not the first realtor who came to us to launch a magazine.
Whoa.
And is still simultaneously doing both.
Okay.
So we've got our foot in both mediums, and when I have questions that I don't understand because I've never been a realtor, she's the first person I call.
Oh, that's awesome. Very good. I might need to get her on. Yeah. So when you're looking for partners or looking for talent, what I mean, does it take you more than 2 minutes to know if you got a winner?
It does not. It does not. And the company will be upset to hear that. But when they see my numbers, they won't be upset, because I recruited so many people, but my numbers stayed high. Like, my launch numbers stay high, because it's very expensive to recruit someone and they don't pan out. Right. Not only is it expensive and it's a waste of time for them, it's a waste of time for the company, but it sets us back in that territory. In the mind of the reader, it sets everything back. So you can't get a stinker, man. It's just the worst thing you can do. You'd rather not recruit someone.
So what's your secret sauce? I mean, we got people listening right now going, God, I got to build a sales force.
So we use something called the performance index, I think. I'll dig it up and send it to you. So if people are really... predictive index. It's called the predictive index. So we've had different versions of that. So I know...
DISC, Colby, all that stuff.
I know going into the call if they have the makeup, at least, of our top people. It's not a deal breaker, but I at least know going into it if they have the makeup of our top people.
Okay, that's interesting.
Then the next thing... you know what one of the most interesting parts of the predictive index is, by the way? There's one called agreeability, and our most successful people scored extremely low on agreeability. And it sounds like an oxymoron, but what that means is they don't believe what you say when you say it. Right. And where that applies in sales is like, hey, well, you want to buy this? You say what?
No.
Exactly. And you're like, actually, they do. Or the other version is, hey, do you want to buy this? You say,
yes.
No, because you need to sign here if you do. I'm not coming back tomorrow, which is normally where it comes. Like, the agreeability is like, yeah,
that's
sure.
really good.
I'll be back tomorrow. And you're like, okay, cool, man. So you call your coach and you're like, yeah, he said he's in. And it was like, cool, where's the contract? You're like, oh, no, I got to call and get it tomorrow. You're like, you did not get a contract.
Wow.
So that's, so little things like that I honed in really sharp over time just to have those conversations with people.
That's cool.
Coachability would probably be at the top of the list, though. Coachability, for me, when I'd hire someone, I'd say, hey, listen, we've hired X amount of people this year, this month, whatever. I want pink hat people. What's a pink hat person, Remington? if I tell you to wear a pink hat on Tuesdays, I want the first question you ask to be what shade of pink. I don't want you to ask me why I'm wearing a pink hat. I don't want you to ask, can I wear it on Wednesdays? Do I have to? If you say any of those things, I know you're not coachable because I've done this 129 times. If you want to be 130, you don't ask questions. You just do it, baby.
Right.
Just get out and do it better and harder than anyone else has, and you'll be successful.
And sometimes, the best salespeople aren't really the best coaches. They're not the best leaders. They're just the best salespeople.
Correct. So, and vice versa.
Yeah. And so have you faced some of that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's the player-coach mentality is the best person in the room. Early on, it's tough because you have such a small team. I remember when I had 5, I recruited. So the first 3 were converts. They were already doing a product for N2 Publishing, which is who I partnered with to do this. And they sold just as fast as I did. They already had the skill set, and they were top people, so they launched. And I'm like, cool, off to the races. We know we can scale this. So then the next 2 hires were from outside the company. So we're very small this time. We got like 5 or 6 people. At the time, really no leadership prospects, but you don't know that because everyone is and everyone isn't. So we start to build it around people, and then they start doing things that a top salesperson would do, but definitely not a leader. And so you have to kind of sift through that in the beginning stages.
I got it. I want to hit on your podcast. How long have you been podcasting? How many episodes have you done? And who's your top couple guests that you just love?
Yeah, so
there they are,
the podcast has been phenomenal. It's a lot of fun. We're on episode 85, I guess. I didn't know that until you pulled that up, Jason. Thank you, sir. So
that's what I do.
Hit follow, Jason. Hit follow.
That's right. Yeah, I need another follower. So we've got 3 different types of episodes that we do. The first one is with a top realtor like yourself.
Oh, okay.
So that's the majority of our shows is a top realtor from across the country who's been on the cover, and they have a phenomenal story. Rob Ellerman does $800 million a year, a $1 billion expansion across 3 states. Phenomenal episode. Then we have the second type of person we have on is like an author, speaker, a well-known person within the real estate community, or just has written a book. Like those make for really good shows in the real estate space. Jay Papazan was one of our most recent authors. He wrote The One Thing. Steve Sims wrote Blue Fishing. Chandler Bolt.
Steve Sims is a good attitude podcast guy.
He is?
Yeah,
Steve Sims is great. You know who his voice sounds like? You don't have young kids, so you're not going to know this.
I don't know.
He was on my show, and I said, "You sound like Bluey's dad." He sounds just like this cartoon character, and I started calling him Bluey's dad the rest of the show.
Well, you got fantastic ratings, 5 out of 5.
Yes, sir.
And I'm guessing you enjoy the podcast. Has that accentuated your business? I would have to think that it has.
Yeah, it really brought everything together because for years we were just really only known in the markets that we're in. Like there was no need for them to know that we were national because if you engage with it, you only care about your market. If you're in Nashville, you care about Nashville real producers. If you're in Charlotte, same. But now the brand being cohesive and we have national partnerships and a national show and a national event, it really does matter.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, congratulations on the podcast.
Thanks.
That's awesome. So we got Real Producers Elevate in September. We got Real Producers Podcast where you can get all of Remington that you want. We got Agent Allies, his book coming out, and he is in 130 markets, and he is kicking it big time. We always like to end our show with this little exercise. Are you 40 yet?
I'm not. I'm 36.
36. Just crushing it. Well, this won't take long for Knowledge Through the Decades, but we still want to do it. And so Knowledge Through the Decades is we ask people to give us their attitude lesson throughout their life. And so we always start with birth. I'm sure you don't remember being born, but what is the attitude lesson of birth?
So I don't want to not be a good student and answer the question exactly the way you wanted me to, but I have a 4-month-old.
Right.
And so when I hear you ask that, I'm thinking about him probably more so than myself. And I don't know, just as a dad, I started a book and I'm writing to him lessons that I've learned, and I entitled it Becoming a Man. And I'm going to give it to him when he turns 18, maybe before. So I don't know if that answered your question.
No, well, that's great. This is why we do this, right? Because that's an idea that anybody. I was just with a couple last night. I said, have you ever written a letter to your kid and tell them you love them? And they both went, no.
Yeah,
I'm
so
like,
easy.
Wow. So yeah, gappers, look at, right now your attitude action very simply is if you got kids, write them a letter.
Yeah, so easy.
Doesn't need to be a novel, doesn't need to be a manifesto. Just want to let you know I love you and I think you're special. So
yeah,
well done on that. So let's talk about Remington when he was 10.
Okay.
Where were you at 10? Who was your teacher?
Yeah.
And what was the attitude lesson you learned at 10?
Mrs. Jackson, 5th grade. Right? Because 10's fifth grade.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you smarter than fifth grader?
It depends.
Yeah. I remember all my teachers. They had a profound impact on me. I was spending all my money on basketball cards.
Nice.
There was a basketball card store across the street, and I realized if I made X amount of dollars, I could get the really nice packet. So I guess because I talk about this all the time, but the big lesson that I learned is delayed gratification, because if you spent, I didn't have a lot of money, but I could make money. I get $1 and there was a $1 pack. Well, the $1 pack was guaranteed to have an X amount of cards, but not good cards. But if you get the $2 or the $5 pack, you got really cool cards that were worth more. And so I learned, listen, do you spend it all or do you pocket some of the cash, wait, not get it packed this time, and have better cards in the future?
And how did you make money at 10?
Odd jobs around the house. That was before I could do the mower. But yeah, odd jobs and saving up.
Now, you mentioned being homeless.
Yeah.
And so how did that affect your attitude? And what does that bring up?
I think there's different degrees of homeless. I definitely don't want people feeling bad for me. We had family, and we were essentially living with grandparents.
Yeah, okay.
And it was when I was very young, so I loved it. It was great, hanging out with grandma and grandpa and making cookies and stuff. But I think as I got older, I really empathized with my parents' story, knowing what they went through and what we went through. And I never knew we didn't have a lot of money. I knew I couldn't get the things that some of the other kids at school could get, and I didn't really care. Like, we were happy, and that's a big lesson in itself when I think about success and what we've had. I mean, we live a very easy, cush money life, but still have the same issues, if not more, that we did when I didn't have any of that.
So, and you got 3 kids right now?
4, yeah.
You got 4 kids?
Yeah, baby.
You gonna keep going?
Nope.
You sure?
It's not physically possible unless the Lord wills it.
Okay, I get it.
Which is possible, I guess. It's like, listen, I've done everything I should do, then God really wants you to have a kid.
There you go.
I guess I got to raise another kid.
Well, that's, I know you love your family a lot, and I love looking at the pictures and following you, and I think it's neat that you put that first, which is cool. So now let's go to 20 years old. Now, hold on. So where did you grow up?
I grew up in Muncie, but we commuted to Anderson. I went to Liberty Christian School.
Oh, my gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
And so 20, where were you? Tell me what was going on.
20, I was at Olivet Nazarene University.
Oh, there you go.
And I thought I had it all figured out. I knew what I wanted to do. I was an exercise science major. I wanted to be a physical therapist, and I wanted to own my own physical therapy studio.
Right.
And that's where I discovered it, but I didn't have a job, and I lost that job with Grandpa. And so I actually wanted to work the Bears camp. The Chicago Bears had their camp at our school.
Right.
So I went back to be a security guard, making $100 a week and getting signatures of players I don't even care about, and working security for players that are 300 pounds, and I was like 150 pounds. It made no sense. But that's where I discovered knives, and that kind of changed the game for me. That's where I was recruited.
There you go. And that's good. Let's go to 30.
30, I'd have to say the birth of my firstborn changed everything. You don't realize how, it's so cliche, but cliches are cliches for a reason. You just don't know how selfish you are until you have a kid. And I disagree with have your life together before you get married and have kids. I think you do it as early as possible. I think getting married and having kids impacts you in a way that nothing else can, and you will start to make better decisions all around when you're doing it with somebody else.
Yeah, I like that. What was the hardest day of your life, or what was the biggest obstacle you've overcome?
Wow, that is deep. I had a panic attack in 2017, and it was about a bunch of issues. Had a marriage that was rocky. Had a baby who at the moment of the panic attack was screaming her head off, and we didn't know why, and that was scary. My dad had lost his job, and I took it on my personal self to see to it that we fixed that. And at the time, all that was happening, I was seeing the most financial and career success I'd ever had. And I didn't know what to do. So I had a panic attack.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so what was your attitude what's the attitude lesson of panic attacks? There's people that have had them. What did you learn?
What did I learn after the fact?
Yeah.
Well, I learned what caused it. And I learned there was things that caused it that I should not have been focusing on to cause it. I also learned that I should have been letting other people that care about me into my world to speak truth into my world instead of taking it all on myself.
Yeah.
And since that time I have.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a core group of friends. We got guys in a fantasy football crew for 12 years.
Nice.
And the text group was so like cutthroat, like it was all about football. And a couple of years ago, we realized like we're best friends and we just kind of tear each other. What if we started like building each other up? Like it's fine to talk trash about fantasy, but like the rest of the time, are we like improving each other? So we created a men's retreat out of that group, and we've been doing it ever since. And I've got a good core group of guys that we're all chasing the same thing. We're men of faith, and we want to raise our families to be the same.
Yeah, that's great. So Gappers, the attitude lesson there is you don't have to do it on your own. And there's people there that can pull you up, and there's rewards in pulling others up. Your father went to work at Real Producers.
He did, yeah. So that was a game changer too. Working with your dad is tough, and it was good for our relationship. It was challenging for our relationship, but it was a lot of fun. You know, he wrote. So he's done a lot. He's worn a bunch of different hats, really hats that we needed him to wear. He's written over 1,000 stories personally.
Wow. For
realtors across the country. Isn't that wild? Can you imagine writing 1,000 stories about virtually the same type of person over and over again?
Well, I mean, he's a writer. I think some of the most gifted people are writers.
Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Gappers, we are here with the one and only Remington Ramsey. He is a entrepreneur. He is a huge magazine publisher. He has a book coming out called Agent Allies. He has a unbelievable. I'm thinking I'm going to this thing.
Yeah, you are. You're invited.
RP Elevate, and he has a podcast. He's been spitting knowledge. I hope that he's touched your heart. He's touched your mind. He certainly did for me. I hope he got you thinking about things. I hope that you know that you're no different than him, really. What I've seen in Remington is his attitude is different. That's his differentiator, his belief in himself. And it's time, if you're sitting there wondering, what the hell am I going to do with my life? Why can't I make things work? Remington very much lives in his vision, not his circumstances. He was told, hey, magazine print is dead. It's not going to work. And now look at him. So Remington, thank you for your honesty and your candor. And this was an awesome interview and a podcast, and I really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, you asked some really good questions. You're really good at this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
One last thing. We always ask our guests to give a message of hope, right? There's somebody walking on a beach right now. There's somebody sitting in a car. There could be somebody sitting in a bathtub crying because their world's falling apart. What's your message of hope for those people that are listening to us right now?
Well, I'm a man of faith, as I said. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus, and I honestly believe that if you put your faith and hope in anything of this world, it's going to let you down, people included, even people of faith, even myself. If you're putting your hope in me or your pastor or anything like that, you got to find your faith and have people around you that speak into that. I'm not going to tell you what that is. I'll tell you what that is for me is hope in Christ. It changed my world. It changed my life. It's given me that perspective. You're going to find people who have my perspective that don't believe in my God, but ultimately it's going to give you the success of this world. And I'm not after success in this world. I'm after success in the next.
Yeah, that's great. That's deep. That's great. We always ask people their critical question, and I asked my father this. It was his birthday yesterday, and I say, what's the one question that goes through your mind in times of great decision-making and stress? What's the one question that comes up in your mind that you ask yourself? And we call it the critical question. It's in my book. And most people, 60% of the people know what question is in their mind the whole time. And my father gave me the answer. He said, how will this help me get to heaven? and that's what drove him. And so love that answer. And I'm fine preaching, and I'm fine embracing the thought of God, the concept of a higher power. You're not alone, and life is so great, and it's so mystical, because we're not here alone. And so I love what you said. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is a wrap on the Get Attitude podcast with Remington Ramsey. If you like what Remington said, please share out this video. Send it to all your realtors. Get down and see us in Texas in September. Pick up RP Real Producers Magazine. Hey, and if you're not in the top 500, listen to what he just said, and let's get you in that magazine.
That's right.
Remington, you are the man. Thanks so much for being on the Get Attitude podcast.